Episode 1, Turkey Smoking Cowboys.
Thanksgiving morning rolled into Barton County, cold enough to sting your nose hairs. But the cold stopped at the edge of Frank's garage. The big door sat halfway up the holiday setting. Open enough for the smoke to roll out, closed enough to keep November from marching straight in. Out in the driveway, Frank's pit boss smoker chugged away, sending steady. Warm clouds into the air like it was breathing for the whole street. A big TV sat on top of his old FF Tunes DJ stand, already tuned to Cowboys pregame. Analysts hollered about stats and destiny. Frank just stared at the ticker like it owed him money. He sat in his usual lawn chair, hoodie pulled up, cooler at his feet. Larson was parked beside him in a plain green sweater. The knit fabric stretched over his bulldog belly in a way that seemed deeply personal to the sweater. Every time the smoker popped, Larson's ears twitched, but he never seriously considered moving. Warm, close, food adjacent, that was his entire life philosophy. Hudson stepped out into the cold with his phone already in his hand. Camera open but angled low. His own hoodie was pulled tight, breath puffing in little clouds as he walked. He didn't shove the phone in his dad's face. He just came over, eased into the second lawn chair, and tilted the camera toward the smoker. "Morning, Dad," he said. Frank's eyes stayed on the pit boss. "Morning, bud. Happy Thanksgiving." Hudson smiled. "How's the turkey doing?" "Holding steady at 250, Frank said. "Only thing in this family that behaves when I ask it to." Hudson snorted, lifting the phone a little higher to catch the smoke, the TV, the cooler, the bulldog, and the man in the middle of it. Behind them, from inside the garage, came the slow, steady rasp of sandpaper on wood. Scrape, scrape, scrape. Harry sat at his workbench, because Harry always sat at his workbench shaping a small block of wood that looked perfectly fine before he started. Space heater hummed at his feet. Mason jar rested by his boot. A pencil lived permanently behind his ear. He never looked up when he said, "Bird still looks raw from here." Frank didn't take his eyes off the smoker. "Pop, it's been on 30 minutes. Harry shrugged, sanding louder. "Just saying what I see." Footsteps crunched along the side of the house. Ricky appeared first, like he usually did. Early, overexcited, loud. He hustled around the corner, wearing a gray hoodie with the hood up, hands stuffed into the front pocket, breath fogging around him in white bursts. He carried a grocery bag swinging from one hand like a trophy. "Happy Turkey Day," he shouted, before confirming any human was in earshot. "I'm not late, am I?" Frank sighed. "Sun's still waking up, Rick. You're early." "That's what you want on Thanksgiving," Ricky said, chest heaving, proud. "Early energy." He held up the bag. "I brought corn muffins. They were buy one, get one, so technically I saved Thanksgiving." Hudson hid a smile. "You bought those yesterday, didn't you?" "Yeah," Ricky said. "Which is why I can confirm they were excellent yesterday." He winked at the camera. Inside the house, Thanksgiving sounded very different. Pots clanged. Cabinet doors slammed. The oven beeped, then beeped again, like it was begging for mercy. Diane stood at the center of the chaos in her robe, cigarette perched on her lip, hair pinned up with a plastic spoon. She had a big metal pan of dressing in front of her, and she was stirring it with the same energy you'd use to mix concrete. "Every year," she grumbled at the stove, "I do all the side dishes. And every year those boys sit out there babysitting a dead bird like it's the Pope." She grabbed the broth and poured, and kept pouring. The dressing mixture sloshed loudly. Diane stopped, stared. "No," she said. "No, not again." She tipped the pan side to side. The dressing moved like it had opinions. From the garage, Harry's voice floated in, casual as weather. "Sounds runny." Diane stomped to the doorway between the kitchen and the garage, pan still in her hands, spoon pointing like a compass that always found Harry. "You hush that mouth," she said. "I am making traditional dressing." Harry didn't look up. "If tradition is soup, you nailed it." Diane squinted at him, lips twitching like she couldn't decide between laughing and throwing the spoon. "You keep talking like that," she said, "and I'm gonna have you taste test everything." Harry paused his sanding. You leave me out of this war. I'm neutral. Neutral my foot, she muttered, turning back to the kitchen. You're Switzerland with an attitude. She disappeared. The clatter resumed. Back outside, the smoker puffed another lazy cloud. Cowboys highlights flashed on the TV. December level, cold crawled under the edge of Frank's lawn chair. And he nudged Larson closer with his boot. You warm enough, buddy? He asked. Larson snorted and rolled, green sweater bunching up under his chin. He looked deeply offended that he couldn't be closer to the turkey. A new shape shuffled up the drive. Doug arrived, wrapped in a thick coat, gloves on, hat down, holding a gas station fountain drink that steamed from the lid like it was experimental. Morning, he said, taking a sip. Happy Thanksgiving. Frank looked at the cup. Doug, your drink is fogging up the air. It's the winter mix, Doug said, completely confident. Hudson swung the camera his way. There's a winter mix. Doug nodded, pretty sure. Ricky leaned in to sniff the drink, dude. That smells like windshield fluid. That's the electrolytes, Doug said. Frank shook his head. You're gonna start glowing by New Year's. Ricky crouched next to the smoker and peered through the vent like he could see flavor. Frank, you want help? He asked. I learned how to baste a turkey on YouTube. All you need is a mop and bravery. Frank didn't blink. We're good. Come on, Ricky said. I can be your turkey assistant. You can be my stand over there and don't touch anything important assistant, Frank said. Harry's voice drifted out from behind them. That's a full-time position. Ricky clutched his chest. Y'all are hurtful on holidays. The front door swung open again. Diane came out holding the pan of dressing like it was proof in a courtroom. Frank, I need you to look at this with your eyes and not your smart mouth. She tilted the pan. The dressing made a slow motion slide to one end and sloshed back. Ricky took a step behind Doug. Oh boy, Doug whispered. That's mobile. Diane glared. It is fine. Harry, from the workbench, said, It's waving good morning to us. Diane turned her head just enough to be heard, but not enough to lose visual dominance over her pan. Harry, you better be careful, she said. You're 2 comments away from peeling potatoes for next year. Harry sipped from his jar. I'll risk it. Z shot him a side eye that promised sequel movies, then looked back at Frank. It thickens in the oven, she said, firm. I know it does, Frank replied, equally firm. It never did. Everyone knew it. None of them had a death wish. Diane huffed, spun around, and marched back inside, dressing pan sloshing like a tiny, angry ocean. The moment the door shut, Ricky whispered, If that stuff chases me in my sleep, I'm moving. Diane did what it always did on holidays, stretched. The turkey darkened to a perfect golden brown. The air smelled like butter and smoke and every good memory that had ever happened in that garage. The Cowboys pregame turned into actual game. Larson napped hard. Doug refilled his questionable drink. Ricky opened the corn muffins and lined them up like a carb army. Hudson filmed bits and pieces, but he kept the camera low, more for him than for anybody else. Just capturing the way his dad smiled at the smoker, the way Harry never left the bench, the way Ricky talked with his hands like everything was a sports commentary, the way Doug took life in slow, confused sips. Finally, Frank tapped the thermometer and nodded. That's it, he said. We're in business. He opened the smoker, and a blast of hot, perfect turkey steam hit the cold air. Ricky made a sound like a dying animal discovering hope. Doug just whispered, yes. Even Harry leaned a bit in his chair at the workbench. Bird looks right, he said. Frank grinned. Bird is right. From inside, Dion's voice exploded. If anyone says one thing about my dressing, they're washing dishes. The whole driveway went quiet. Ricky carefully set his muffin down. Doug slowly put the lid on his drink. Hudson lowered the phone. Harry's sandpaper went still. Larson blinked. Frank cleared his throat. All right, he said. Let's eat before this turns into a hostage situation. They filed into the house and took their usual spots around the table. The turkey sat in the middle, perfectly carved ready, the skin crisp and shining, juices sizzling softly. Diane had mashed potatoes in a big bowl that had seen more Thanksgivings than most relationships. Green beans, rolls, corn, and yes sir, infamous dressing surrounded it. The dressing stayed in its pan. No one made eye contact with it. "All right," Diane said, planting her hands on her hips. "Who's carving?" Everyone looked at Frank. He stepped forward, grabbed the carving knife, and went to work. Slices fell away clean, steam rising from the inside, like the turkey was happy to be here. Ricky watched with starry eyes. That's art, man." Doug nodded. "Michelangelo could never." Harry muttered. "He'd at least charge more." Plates loaded up. Turkey, potatoes, beans, rolls. Diane plopped a spoonful of dressing on everyone's plate with the force of a woman proving a point. "You're welcome," she said each time, and they ate. Ricky talked too loud about a turkey fryer story from a few years back that somehow ended with missing eyebrows. Doug explained in detail his theory on why food tastes better on days off. Diane critiqued the mashed potatoes she made herself, then complimented them anyway. Harry sprinkled in dry commentary that had no right being as funny as it was. Nobody mentioned the dressing. Nobody dared. But they cleaned their plates, laughed between bites, and for a solid half hour. The only real sound in the house was forks on plates and people who loved each other loudly and badly, but truly. Later, they migrated back out to the garage like it was clockwork. The turkey was mostly carved down to bones. Leftovers were packed. The table was half cleaned. Diane announced she'd deal with the rest later in the same tone she used for politicians and utility companies. In the garage, everyone took their places again. Frank in his lawn chair in front of the TV. Hudson on a little stool beside him with a cold root beer in hand. Ricky on an upside-down bucket, leaning forward like he was on the sideline. Doug leaning against the workbench, working on something new from the gas station. Harry on his throne at the bench, jar in hand, block of wood abandoned for the evening. Larson sprawled on the floor in his green sweater, legs kicked out, belly full, snoring soft. The Cowboys had a lead. Not a comfortable one. The kind that made Frank lean forward with his elbows on his knees. "Don't start," he murmured at the screen. "Just for 1 year. Act like you love me." 2 plays later, the other team ran back an interception for a touchdown. Ricky flinched. "Oof." Doug whistled. "Well, they don't..." Harry took a sip. If a frog had wings, it wouldn't bump its ass. Cowboys need wings. Frank groaned, dragging his hands down his face. "Every single year." "Still time?" Hudson said gently. "Yeah," Frank said. "Time for em to blow it worse." They watched the minutes drain off the clock like someone had pulled the plug. Every hopeful drive fizzled. Every promising moment turned into another reminder that the Cowboys specialized in heartbreak. When the final whistle blew and the score sealed the loss, Frank slumped back in his chair like the life had been vacuumed out through his boots. Ricky reached over and bumped his shoulder. "Hey, turkey was perfect." Doug nodded. "Best thing I ate all year." Hudson tilted his root beer bottle and tapped Frank's can with it. "Still a good day, Dad." Frank looked at him, then at everyone else gathered in that half-warm, half-cold garage. His shoulders dropped a little. In a good way. "Yeah," he said softly. "Yeah, it was." He reached over to the Bluetooth speaker on the shelf and tapped his phone. A familiar guitar intro floated into the room. Easy gentle, wrapped in 100 little memories. Lone Star, my front porch looking in. Ricky hummed along immediately, off-key but committed. Doug nodded to the beat, late but trying. Harry tapped his fingers once on the workbench. That was basically a standing ovation. Larson snored right through it. Frank settled deeper into his chair, beer can resting on his stomach, eyes on nothing in particular. Hudson lifted his phone, recording again, not the game, not the score, just the scene in front of him. His dad relaxed, Ricky talking with his hands, Doug doing slow-motion nods, Harry quiet and content. The glow of the TV, the hum of the heater, the soft twang of the song, the dog in his green sweater, dead asleep in the middle of it all. He lowered the phone just a little and whispered into the mic so only his future self and a few lucky viewers would ever really hear it. 1 turkey, 1 loss. 1 perfect Thanksgiving night. This was life at Frank's place.
Well, if you made it all the way to the end, either you really liked the story, or your phone fell asleep before you did. Either way, I appreciate you. For the full Frank's Place episodes, previews, and mini-series, follow us on Facebook. That's where all the chaos lies. And for the full audiobook versions, subscribe to the Frank's Place YouTube channel, where the stories run longer than Harry's one-liners. This is Life at Frank's Place.